time I go looking for it, the last 2 times is like, I don't know where the fucker is, but it ain't here. So that's my. So what we get to do is I'll show you a piece of technology that.
Keep it a secret.
No. I suppose you could if you wanted to. But it's one of those things that are kind of brutal. It's like taking your girlfriend and taking a whip tour.
All right. Some girls like that. We had a place. We had a bar, Fantasy Ranch, and they had like different scenarios in each like different room.
Yeah.
So some of that whip idea wasn't a bad one. Okay.
You can see the 2 shiny spots on the end of that tapered cone.
Yeah.
Okay, they took a punch to it and drove a punch in there to spread it out to get it off.
Uh-huh.
Well, they just drove it back in with that end of that drive for the fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's a kind of neat deal, but you could have made that go a lot better.
Smoother.
Put a new part in it. That would have been better, yeah.
Yeah, smooth. Yeah, brand new part. That might have helped. Probably paid for it anyway.
Or 3 of them. Put that right there in the middle of that. Watch your lips. And that's how
Oh, it
that-
just pops right out?
Yep. That's how that works. Oh, a pound of silicone. Awesome. Love it. Yeah, we're going to have to do a little machine work on that, so and a piece of junk later. Here's why you got this crank. There's a Woodruff keyhole there, and normally all of them are up here. There's no reason for a keyhole there, so that crank was for something exotic. Somebody wanted to get rid of it, so that's how they did it.
Good. Just fine fixing it with the long bros, and they'll take it. They'll take anything. It's just like he'll eat anything. Just
Somebody said brand new standard. It's like, oh, it's got to be good, right?
brand new used. Just like Dad's duck pond. It's brand new. 40 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, that's what this one did.
9,000 miles an hour.
I'll get close, but not quite.
Probably 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, 115, 145 and a quarter.
70. 70 is reasonable. That means it has, if it's got the same rear ends as some of it should have to turn about 2,400 to pull that.
I bet you get up to 80, Jim.
Well, see, the problem with this one is, this ideally has an enormous amount of power for what it is. So, I think the only time you want to use it is when you're in high gear on the flat. But the thing about it is, like if you want to pass somebody, I don't think you're going to have to worry about it. Be a lot like the Mercedes.
Would you say it's not like the Mercedes?
No, it will be like that. When you gas it, it'll go. Because that's one of my things my dad would do. He put injectors in for how hard he wanted to go with them. The 60s were kind of, run every day, no bullshit. And then I didn't have very many with 70s in them, but we had some with 80s in them. And if you wanted her to go, that's the ones you wanted. So I checked the teeth on the blower drive here. It's a 39 tooth, which is good. It's close enough to make this run like it's supposed to. Have lots of air.
So we have some good news, right? The good news is you're here. What's this?
That's out of that guy's muffler.
Oh, not ours.
This is the same wheel that's in that turbo over there.
Not good.
This come out, the turbo, went down the pipe,
It did?
around the corner, in the muffler, and stayed there for years. So you can see how much metal was actually holding it together, that little ring of metal.
Yeah.
And well, you can feel how heavy that thing is. This probably weighs 3-4 pounds.
It's a little bit too much for me, Joe.
And that, my race rig, you can spin them up like that. And, I had some of them where I'd throw that wheel out the exhaust, do it a burnout. Didn't even get a chance to hold it wide open very long. But that's
Well, we don't need to do any of that.
it should do good things. And the other side of that too is it shouldn't smoke.
That'd be great.
Because I'm building it the same way I build the motors for the yarders. And if you put it together standard times and short cords in it, put 80s in it, it will pull and not smoke at all. So I'm kind of hoping we're on the same page in this motor and the cam. What we want.
Tearing her down, building her up, tearing her down. Tearing her down to build her up. Now what's wrong?
I'm just sightseeing.
Every time you sightsee, it costs me thousands of dollars. No, just kidding you.
Well, it's better to catch it now than
You know
after it's a.
You know I approve.
I mean, this might have been a good idea when they did this, but I'm going to tell you, through the passage of time, you will regret having that goddamn contact cement on there. See, that's the fucking Caterpillar guys that do that shit. Because Cat uses that fucking shit on their motors. And then they'll put it on here and just pour it on, squish it on there, and the gasket goes.
Yeah.
As soon as you fire it up, it looks like a sprinkler.
Are you gonna tip it over?
Can you get behind it and hold it so I can push on it a little bit?
Oh, just hold it up there.
Just stick your foot up there by it. Just don't let it come my way. Mikey!
Grab on, Mike.
You're alright. Let's go. It's okay. That's what it's gonna do. Crash. Awesome!
Tricks of the trap. Tricks of the trade. Somebody wrote something on that. good. Mike? We don't look it up because you gave it to me.
Oh, there's one that's pretty good. But you get all them little lines and spots. That's just dirt in it. The caps are pretty loose in the block, which is, see that wide, bright, shiny mark?
Yeah.
That's something on the crank. Or the crank bent a little bit. There's one that survived without much damage. These are all good to reuse. Just need the tap. Put back in service.
That's not wearing very good, is it?
It's hard to tell because it had a lot of dirt in it. You don't have any good history on the crank because you don't have a motor that it come out of to read the bearings. Because when you do that, you'll pull a motor down and then you'll read the bearings as you take it apart to see what you've got. Sometimes you'll see them like rod stuff where you got a rod that's kinked over. It'll be in the copper on one edge of the rod, and that's because there's an alignment issue. Normally these are not a problem. Ever.
Well, there's a lot of wear left on that one, isn't there? I mean, that's like...
Sure. Actually, it's a little, from these bearings that show the, where it's shiny all the way across. That's usually because it's a little bit,
Oversized?
no, well, it's probably a little bit big for the bore, which means it's pretty tight, and it won't affect it over time, but the next time they work on it, they'll just get a polish on it and put it back together and it'll be fine. That's when you see a wear mark in the bottom of them. It's about that wide because it's only touching in that one spot.
Right.
See how far it went clear up. Because the bearing fits the shaft. The shaft fits the bearing very well.
Well, that's good news.
Well, you don't expect anything but good news when you take stuff apart that's,
New.
when you spend a whole bunch of crap money on it. We're going to set it on here, and then we're going to decide on, we're going to stand it on end. Okay? And then we're going to do something exotic. Hold it. I'll take that. Just, you don't want to pull ahead of me because I got the thrust washers on my end. Bend them.
Get up in there and look at that. Oh, there
So
she
we'll take
is.
it. Well, see, the other thing you look for is the plugs in the shaft, and we'll probably take the plugs out of the shaft and blow that out with solvent, clean it up good so it's not full of dirt. Because I doubt if the crank has been running something, and then they took it out for some reason. But we'll take all them plugs out because if it's run a long time, this passage where it's drilled through to the main, this will be clear full of mud, clear up into here if they didn't clean it. It's one of them things you do when you tear it apart and fix it.
Well, it is what it is, Billy boy. This says STD, THSTD, MATSR 00121706, and then the number on the crank is 121NNN83. So that, or a 7, that might be a 7.
That's brass in the crank right there. somebody splattered some brass in this.
Oh.
Whether that's, see that?
Yeah.
That's welded to the steel.
It's what?
That's welded to the steel, it's brass. I don't know where that came from. They did some kind of repair on the shaft and they had something as a ground that was brass.
That's an NNN1 83. 1 NNN 83. What does that mean?
We'll get it, stand it up. Is there a safe place we can put this where it won't get down? Right there's a good spot by the light bulb. That way we can tie it to something so it doesn't capsize.
Okay.
Just put it over there and stand it on it. So, let me set this on the ground. Alright, take her out. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. And you spin it around like a dog.
Well, let's see. I got
that.
some string.
You got that gasket.
I got some string in the back. I can get it.
Promise not to crash into it, it'll be fine. Not to worry.
I also have wire.
See that?
Yeah.
That's not good. Saying the gear's loose on the shaft. They had a big deal about those. They changed the end of the shaft and made it, I think, about 4 thousandths bigger or 5 thousandths bigger. So that it, well, this all this shit came loose. That's out of a 92, actually. See, the problem is if you don't get this all loaded tight on here, this gear will float on the shaft, and then it'll take the key out of it. Train wreck. As soon as you get into it very far.
Just take it down.
Oh, yeah. Turn it. I'm gonna let Dexter know how to do this.
Yeah. Just tie it right there. You hold it, would you?
Sure. Need a knife?
Man. What's that?
See the wear on the uppers?
Uh-huh.
That's typically a pretty tight installation. Because you shouldn't ever have wear on the top bearing.
And why do we?
Because I'm guessing that shaft is a smidge bigger than standard. Or the shaft's bent.
There you go.
Another scenario.
Shaft is bent. Can we fix it?
Actually, yes.
Does it take a little grinding?
Now, when you do take the crank to a place that's good,
Uh-huh.
and they'll spin it on centers and measure the shaft to see if it's got a belly in it, and then they'll put it on a jig, and
Klamath Falls probably doesn't have anything that could do
they
it.
don't. See, and all the guys I talked to about bending, straightening a shaft, oh my God, verboten, we can't do that. I'm like, the crank in my race motor was bent 28 thousandths. The bearings were into the iron. And he straightened that shaft out. It had $1,850,000 on it at that point. I've run it in my race rigs 15 years at 3,400 RPM. It doesn't care.
That's
It's
good.
fine.
So that guy's still around?
With because the fan belts pull the crank up, and that'll make it touch the top, and actually it won't touch the bottom. And they this one didn't have anything holding it up. Should not have touched on the top, but it did a little bit.
Yeah, they're only running for 2 seconds.
We might have got 10 minutes out of it, but I can't tell you why it's such a weird little motor.
Can't tell me why we got a weird little motor.
Lock the lock. Where's the fucking 7? Okay. So there's a little trick about 271. So the locks on the bearings go together. On a 271, they're opposite. And it's the only motor they make that does that. And it's like, what were you guys thinking?
Huh? Now it's windy. Here, hold this.
Well, if you want to grind on your gizmo, I don't know how much gas is left in my unit, but that'll get you down
Okay.
the road a lot better.
Yeah, alright. Let's give this to you. Okay, mate.
Huh.
So you're taking those with you?
What?
The
The caps?
yeah, I guess.
Yeah, because I don't know how much difference it's going to make. But if we're going to hone it and do a nice job, they say to put the caps in them and torque them so that the block's stressed like it is when it's running.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It just makes, I mean, and then you keeps you from losing them, keeps you from making a mess out of stuff.
That's why you don't go to go shopping. I gotta make a little dip. What do you think about that, Chris?
was born up in the mountain, raised by an old grizzly bear. I was born up in the mountain, raised by an old grizzly bear. I was fed by Mother Nature, and I breathe fresh, clean, natural air. I rose up with the sunlight and the moon, she called me to sleep. I rose up with the sunlight and the moon, she called me to sleep. My dreams came by to guide me, but they were not mine to hold or to keep.